Good evening, church. It's good to see you all here. And yeah, it's good to be here. It's been crazy to follow the news from Afghanistan in the past few days, and it's, as Paul was saying, I think it's good for us to pray for them, pray for the nation. It's a great nation that has had the trouble for, well, at least 150 years, if not longer. Mainly with different Western powers attacking back and forth. But today we are in different types of struggle in the wilderness. In Numbers 26, we've been going through the tribes of Israel, and today we are going to go through with the tribe of Judah from verses 19 through 22. The sons of Judah were Er and Onan. And Er and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Judah, according to their families, were of Shelah, the family of the Shelanites, of Perez, the family of the Perizzites, of Serah, the family of the Zerahites. And the sons of Perez were of Hezron, the family of the Hezronites, of Hamul, the family of the Hamulites. These are the families of Judah according to those who were numbered of them, 76,500. I find it interesting how, with all these tribes, or many of them, there is some specific incident remembered, and in here we are reminded of Er and Onan, the sons of Judah. Judah was the leading tribe in Israel. They were the strongest in military strength. In the first census, they were about 12.3% of the whole military strength of Israel. And here they have grown 3% over the course in the wilderness to 12.7% of the whole military strength of Israel. Considering that there are 12 tribes, the weakest being just slightly above 3% of their military strength, Judah was, well, clearly the strongest and clearly the most stable of the tribes, the amount only changing 3%. And it was interesting actually to notice that there are 3 tribes that didn't change so much in the wilderness, and those are the first, second, and fourth strongest of the tribes. Simeon, unfortunately, was the third largest, and they fell to the last over the course in the wilderness. But to go to Er and Onan, we would have to go to Genesis 38. Er was a firstborn of Judah, and he married Tamar. But Er was a wicked man before God, and God was not pleased with him, so God killed him. And according to customs, Tamar was given to his brother Onan to be his wife. And Onan was supposed to raise an heir for his brother, as was the custom. But Onan didn't want to do that, so he didn't allow the woman to get pregnant. That displeased God, and God killed Onan. So we have these 2 men who God wanted to remind us again in Numbers 26, hundreds of years later after these men. And their legacy is that of wickedness and being killed by God. I don't know, maybe there's a message for us there to follow him, to be obedient for him. But also it's interesting that Judah was supposed to then give Tamar to his third son, but he didn't want to. And he was using the excuse that the son was still young, so he sent Tamar back to her father's house and told her to wait there. And Tamar did wait there for many, many years. And eventually it became evident that Judah had no intention of giving her to the third son. So Tamar didn't wait anymore, but she made a plan, she made a scheme. And she went to the roadside and pretended to be a harlot, or played a harlot. And Judah himself ended up to sleep with her. And she got pregnant and with twins, and got sons Perez and Sarah, who we have mentioned here in our text as sons of Judah. And out of Perez, we have the family line, the bloodline of Christ. And I think it's interesting. I think it's marvelous that the circumstances that God wanted to use to bring Messiah, it's amazing to read in the Bible what all happened in that bloodline. And this was only one of the examples. But going back to the tribes of Judah, we have the most information of all the tribes, and that is because it is the bloodline of Christ. It is the tribe where Messiah was supposed to be born, and it feels like most of the focus in the Old Testament is on Judah. And that was already prophesied by Jacob, their father, in Genesis 49, verse 8 through 12, where it reads, Judah, you are he whom your brothers shall praise. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He bows down, he lies down as a lion. And as a lion, who shall rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh comes. And to him shall be the obedience of the people, binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's called to the choice wine. He washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. And exactly as Jacob was telling, pretty much the whole history plays out. But yeah, it's an interesting study. I don't know, it's probably a familiar study for you to go to Matthew 1 and see all the women who are mentioned in the bloodline of Christ. Starting from Tamar, going to Rahab, going to Bathsheba. Interesting examples of God's grace and mercy, of God's relation to humans, of where he is willing to come. And in the Bible, we have many, many more. We have Hagar praying for Ishmael after they had been abandoned by Abraham and Sarah. We have the woman at the well in Damascus, maybe. Jacob's well. We have the woman at Jacob's well, whom Jesus talked with, and whom the whole society had abandoned. And Jesus was extending mercy to her and totally changing her life. It's, I think, a great blessing for us to read of how God relates with humans in our weakness, in desperation, in the bottom. So we have a high priest who can relate to us, no matter what we are going through, no matter where we are, in poverty, in helplessness, in abandonment, in disgrace. And he loves us. And I think he's just looking for us to look for him. And he's ready to give us grace. It's like Hagar in the wilderness. She was abandoned, she was alone. And in that state, she put her faith, her trust in God, acknowledging that there is no one else to help her. And God promised to take care of her and her son and make her son a great nation. And we have seen that in the pages of history. God's grace for people, God's grace for women especially. And all over the Bible, God has told us to take care of the poor, of the weak, of the disgraced. To not turn away, but to seek out to help. And also for that, I think it's good for us to pray for Afghanistan, to pray for all that's going on at the moment. So let us today seek Him, to seek God, and let us lay down our lives before Him, to follow Him, to give our lives to Him, to seek His kingdom, His glory instead of our own. And to do that with all our heart, all our soul, and all our strength, as He has called us to. That's my prayer for the day, that we would just turn to Him and see what He has for us.